All right, we're joined here by Dynamo 2 head coach Kenny Bundy. I'll go ahead and kick things off. If you guys have any questions, please use the raise my hand option there on Zoom. Kenny, on the road now, off to face LAFC 2. How's the team navigating preparations for that match as you guys take your first league road trip of the year?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I think in this league, when you're on the road, it's not necessarily as difficult. It's difficult, but I think it's different than being with the first team. If we were going to LAFC to play their first team in that environment with that crowd, I think it brings different factors. Sometimes on the road, um, it's it's actually a benefit because you have the group together for match day -1. You can do a little bit more individual stuff. I'm really excited, and I think the team traveled really well last year. I thought we got some good results on the road, so the mentality's been great this week.
Thank you for that. Jorge, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Just wanted to ask you um, how you prepare, along with what Edgar asked, how do you prepare for a team like LAFC 2, who just came off a 4-1 win, and just some takeaways on what you saw on your first game of the season?
Yeah, I mean, take their result aside, if you watch that game, which is all that we can do, I think we match up really well with them. I think that they were clinical when they had their chances. I thought Minnesota had some really good opportunities, and was a bit like us last week, where I think they're pretty disappointed, not only in conceding, but in not scoring more than one goal. Like I said, it's a great environment to play in. The weather's going to be perfect. The stadium that they play in is fantastic, and I think it's a great matchup. Obviously, momentum is always something that's really important, and I think after getting their first result, they're going to be on a bit of a high, and I don't necessarily think that we're going to be coming in with more pressure or necessarily more stress about the result. I think the disappointment went away pretty quick. The great part of a game like that, especially early on in the season, is there's a ton of learning moments for young players. There's definitely a lot of learning moments and teaching moments from the staff. So, for us, it's been a great week of reflection and obviously progression to what we need to do on Sunday. But I think if anybody that watched the game looked at that game, and the result was on us, because I think very easily that game could have been 2-0. And if it goes 2-0 with the chances that we created after the missed penalty, the game could have been put away. But the longer we allow teams to have life and feel that they're in the game, the sharper we have to be defensively. And we need to manage the last 10 minutes, not necessarily based on what's happened, but based on what the score line is. Do we need to go after it? Do we need to just maybe see out 5, 6, 10 minutes? And I think that's a growth of any team. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Along with that, I just want to ask you um, over Tate Lampman's status, and then also no Xavier this weekend, correct?
Yeah, no Xavier. Tate unfortunately has an injury that's going to keep him out for a while. It's disappointing because I think the preseason he had, especially with the first team, when we went to Mexico, when we went to Orlando, and he was getting significant minutes in preseason, he was flying. I think it's the best Tate Lampman we've seen. And it's just the way life goes, right? It's something that we don't really know what happened. We know that it's an injury that's going to take time. And it's something that for us as a staff, we have to keep him mentally engaged and understanding that this is the life of being a professional. There's things that you can control, and then there's not. And you can always come back stronger, but that's a lot easier said than done. So for us, it's been just keeping him focused, keeping him positive, and keeping him around the group, because he still is a massive part of this team.
Thank you, Coach. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Ramon, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, just wanted to ask you about one of the teaching opportunities that you mentioned. Uh, you know, just curious if you've spoken to Diego Gonzalez, that missed penalty, if that affects his mentality. It's dangerous. It could hurt a young player's confidence. Just wanted to know if you've spoken with Diego and the team this week.
I'm going to give a little bit of background about Diego's mentality, and I think it'll answer your question. When I had Diego in the academy, and I think he was 15 or 16, there was talent. There was real talent. And I spent a year trying to get him to realize that he wasn't working hard enough. And you can read into that however you want to read into that, but it was not necessarily the nicest ways to tell him. And I was on him. And all of a sudden, he came back the next year, under 18 year, and he said, I understand what you're saying, coach. I understand. And then we signed him straight out of the academy to the first year of the second team. And he's playing really, really well. But every week, Brooklyn Reigns, Marcelo Palomino, and Juan Castilla are coming down every week. And every game, he's on the bench, not because of any fault of his, but because we had first team players coming down. And I said to him at the end of the year, listen, you really grind through that. And he looked me right in the eyes and he said, don't worry, coach, I'm going to be flying next year. And he came in and he had a year like he had last year. Every bump in that kid's road, he has come back stronger. He has come back a different person. And I think if those stories don't speak to his mentality, then I guess I'll answer your question directly. Yeah, I talked to him, but it's not a, hey, you're going to be okay. The first thing he said to me is, I know I've been scouted. I know I've been in this league for 2 years and they have multiple penalties of mine. He goes, and when I stepped up there, I made the wrong decision, but he goes, don't worry about it. And when he says something like that, I have all the trust that he has sorted that out within himself. And we just did penalties today and he's burying every single one of them. So I think we may look back at that circumstance and realize that lit a fire.
That's fantastic, Kenny. Thank you for sharing and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Rudy, go ahead.
Hey, Kenny. Hope you're doing all right. Kind of the similar question, I guess, to Diego about, a teaching opportunity, but Xavier, obviously, you guys conceded 2 late goals. Both of them were rebounds, I guess, or ricochets that Xavier got his hands on. But, obviously, maybe, I don't know if you guys consider a little bit of bad luck, or is that something that, he would work as a goalkeeper for him to continue to get better, knowing obviously he's out with national duties this week as well?
So it might come to a shock to everybody on this call, but goalkeeping is not my specialty. If you've seen me in person, you realize that I have spent no time in goal. And I think that I think I rely a lot on the experts that we have with Tim and the first team, with Ryan, with the second team. And I'm very, very hard on the goalkeepers when it comes to, what I see and what I feel is a routine save. Are they making those routine saves? Everybody's in agreement that he's made a great save. He's made a save he should make. I think the comment that came out was at the elite level, the top MLS level, the top European level, a goalkeeper might parry that up and out. At the elite level, there's a lot of factors that we don't get from the video, which is, what does he see in front of him? Is there someone blocking the view? All of these things. The piece that I hammered on the team more than anything is not the fact that the rebound happened. It's the fact that there are 2 opportunities for us to either mark a man in the box and cover Zave, or we can block a shot on the second one. And if we want to even be more nitpicky, which we are, I'm sure you guys get that sense from me, how does that opportunity even happen? How do we even allow the shot on target? How do we even make Zave have to make a save? So the layers of where those goals come from, they go all the way through the team. And I think that it's a responsibility from the staff to make sure that guys realize that it's not one person's fault when something happens, just like it's not someone's quality when something else happens. Because if you take the goal that we scored, unbelievable finish from Exxon, unbelievable. But if you watch Steven Anor, he is sprinting at full speed the entire length of the field, which causes some indecision between the guy that's defending and the goalkeeper of, is Exxon going to slip him through? And just as much as that's Exxon's goal, that movement from Steven allows the goal to happen. So I think, we base a lot of this on the fact that there are a lot of reasons these happen. And I think Xavier was excellent. I know he wants to take both of those back. I know he feels like he can do better, but I'm not ever going to criticize a mentality like that. And again, the same with Diego. I think those are situations where you're going to see a difference in the player, in the details, because of certain moments that happened in the first game.
Thanks, Coach. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Anything else here for Kenny before we wrap up?
I have a question. First and foremost, Coach, it's good to see you again. Glad to
Good
be
to see
back
you.
doing your games and everything like that. So I have a couple of just questions in regards to individual players. Of course, Kieran is a homegrown signing, most recent homegrown signing, and you mentioned that you have been in connection with a lot of these players since they were in the academy. And so, what has that relationship kind of been like with him as he's kind of come up through the academy? And how excited are you for him to, of course, to be a part of this team?
Yeah, it makes me feel old if you really want to get down to what it makes me feel like. No, it's funny because every season feels long, and then every season feels short, all within the same year. And then before long, I laugh with Kieran all the time. Kieran, when he was an under 15, he got bio-banded. So that meant he was approved to play with the under 14s. And think about how long ago that was. And we went to Montreal. And there's so many funny stories from when we went to Montreal where I was helping the team there, and he was a 15-year-old, and then to see him progress through. But it's the same because, you look at Diego being around that age. You look at some of the guys that we've obviously moved on to different places. But I think it's really interesting. Right now, we have a lot of guys that are coming out of the academy, and the relationship that I have with Kieran, the relationship that I have with Diego, it helps me understand how I can strengthen the relationships with these younger guys. It also shows the path to these younger guys, and the difference where Diego gets signed straight out of the academy and Kieran goes to college for some years. I think that's what the most important piece of this is that not everybody's path is the same. It's just making sure that you're comfortable with your path and you grind as hard as you can while you're on that path. But it's exciting. I love the fact that as a staff, we can be positive adult figures in their life, and that we have a connection that's enough to allow them to feel comfortable asking life questions.
Thank you. Also wanted to ask about some of the draft picks because how do you say his first name? Is it Osume or Osumene? Sila?
Yeah, Usman.
Usman. Okay. Make sure I butchered that bad. So,
Don't worry. Listen, my name is Kenny Bundy, and look at the names on the roster. I was told I'm pronouncing Exxon Arzu wrong, and I'm like, I can't make the noises that you want me to make with his last name.
I'm gonna have to try to figure that out too. But in regards to Usman, how does a player like that drop to 55th in the draft?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think there were some fears. Social media, it is a part of our life, but it's very interesting. I think there were a lot of rumors that Usman was going to go to Europe, and he had no interest in being in the MLS. To give a lot of credit to our front office, because they got on the phone with his agent and started asking questions and made it very clear that it's a player we're interested in, but we are not interested in a player that wants to go to Europe. And they made it clear that they were on board. I think that question could be answered in the look on our face at the end of the draft, where we're all staring at each other thinking we did not think we had high picks. We thought we were going to have to really dig through and find the gem. and we ended up with Steven Denora and Silla, two players that we had rated in top 10 in the drafts going into it. So it's really intriguing. And yeah, I don't know that answer to that question, but obviously our goal now is to make those guys mainstays in the first team.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think that's why I asked it in that way, because it's good to know that, like you said, you all had him rated so high, but he's closer to the end of the draft. And so that's just always intrigues me, what comes out of that. And so the next thing you already kind of talked about, the last matchup. And so I want to ask another player specific question in regards to Omar Gray. I think he got signed kind of late. And so was he more of a trialist and you guys figured, okay, he's done enough to kind of give an opportunity? Was he somebody that was already kind of playing with the team and so he just needed to get on contract? What was his kind of situation?
Yeah, so Omar came in last year.
Okay.
Omar is, and let's go back to the draft. One of the most exciting signings as well, among other ones, is Femi. I think Femi was an undrafted player for Penn State. Femi came in and spent the entire preseason with the first team. I think everybody saw his quality last week. He's got all the potential in the world to be an MLS center back. Omar was similar. Omar last year didn't get drafted. We brought him in. We really liked him, and he's been part of this team now for 1 year and going on to a second year. Our job is very interesting because I've said this before. We have these international spots where we bring in an Exxon, we bring in a Mikael year one. We have the academy kids where you could see what we did last week with the academy players and the quality that those guys bring. And then we have this area that we look for young, domestic, potentially experienced through college players. And both of those guys went undrafted, which, okay, the draft is a very tricky piece of what we do for every club. And I think we've hit really well on those guys, and they've been excellent parts of our team.
All right.